On a radiant spring afternoon in New York City, the streets buzzed with vibrant energy as locals and tourists alike flocked to the area's finest eateries. Among them was an upscale restaurant known as the Golden Spoon, revered for its exquisite gourmet offerings and its reputation as the preferred choice for influential socialites, celebrities, and high-ranking officials. The owner, Victor Langston, was a man deeply invested in projecting exclusivity. For Victor, the restaurant served not only as a business, but as a reflection of his worth and status. In his early 60s, Victor had spent his life amassing wealth and prestige. His perfectly coiffed gray hair and impeccably tailored suits only enhanced the aura he carried with him, a blend of charisma and posh confidence. However, hidden beneath this polished facade lay prejudices carefully cloaked in polite conversation. An unyielding belief dictated who was deemed worthy to step foot into his culinary sanctuary. Victor was hardly transparent about his biases, but his close acquaintances were often privy to the opinions he harbored within. That evening, as Victor stood near the entryway welcoming guests, a couple approached with undeniable elegance. The man wore a sharp navy suit, and the woman, in a vibrant red dress, radiated confidence. Their body language spoke of assurance and familiarity in high-class settings. Yet, as Victor's gaze fell upon them, his warm demeanor briefly faltered. Both were Hispanic. The barely perceptible change in Victor's attitude was evident only to those who had known him for years. His initial gleam of hospitality dimmed slightly, and his voice grew a notch colder. Nevertheless, adhering to the practiced congeniality he implemented with all patrons. "Good evening," he said, his tone crisp. "Have you a reservation this evening?" "We do," the man affirmed with a tempered warmth, "under the name Carlos Reyes." Victor quickly glanced at his maitre d', who, after a quiet confirmation, assured him of the reservation's validity. A twinge of irritation sparked within him. How had this couple interrupted the meticulous screening process he held so dear? "Right this way," Victor gestured, leading them through the dining area. With each step, he could feel the scrutinizing stares of his usual clientele. A throng of affluent, predominantly white patrons exchanged unsettled looks, the atmosphere thickening with a shared discomfort. Victor made a conscious choice, steering the couple toward a small, tucked-away table that whispered they were unwelcome. As Carlos and his wife Elena exchanged measured glances while taking their seats, they recognized the slight directed toward them. Yet tonight was not about the environment. It was about celebrating their love, their wedding anniversary. "Thank you," Elena murmured as she settled in, her expression unyielding. Victor, with an elevated facade of tight-lipped hospitality, retreated, though unease pooled within him. The unusual confidence exuded by the couple unsettled Victor. It was not merely that they were not of his preferred background, but rather the poise with which they presented themselves in his high-end venue. At the entrance, he leaned closer to his maitre d'. "Keep an eye on them," he whispered with a glint of authority in his eyes. "Ensure proper handling of their meal." The maitre d' nodded obediently, a shadow of unease crawling behind his own eyes. In the following 40 minutes, Victor's anxiety mounted. Observing Carlos and Elena from afar, he noted their engaging conversation and moments of laughter that interrupted the restaurant's quiet murmur. Despite the delightful atmosphere, he sensed they inundated his domain. The level of respect they exhibited stirred an unfamiliar irritation, contradicting his expectations of discomfort. Gradually, Carlos and Elena became aware that their service was subpar, the waitstaff decidedly slow in their approach. Elena shot Carlos a knowing smile. They had grown accustomed to this treatment in various dining establishments. Their unwavering focus on their celebratory evening deflected any potential negativity. "I will not let him ruin this night," Carlos asserted softly. Contentment forged a barrier against the unspoken prejudice around them. With every passing moment, Victor's frustration deepened. His attempts at inciting an expected reaction fell flat. Instead, the couple remained undeterred by his restaurant's shroud. Satisfied he had held the reins of the situation, Victor finally approached their table, his polished mask barely concealing the rising tide within. "Good evening, Mr. Reyes, Mrs. Reyes," he began, projecting a composed disposition. "I hope your dining experience is up to our usual standards." "Yes, everything is fine. Thank you," Carlos replied, maintaining a mild tone. "Wonderful," Victor replied, struggling to mask the layer of pent-up frustration surfacing beneath his cordiality. "Although, I must admit, it surprised me to see your reservation come through." Carlos remained unfazed. "We reserved this through the standard procedure like anyone else would," he assured with quiet resolve. A palpable tension hung between them, prompting Victor to clarify, "You see, our clientele typically doesn't reflect your background." Silence ensued. Victor's condescending implication laid bare the weight of his preconceived notions. Yet, Carlos, anchored in elegance, maintained his stance. "We're here to celebrate our love. No more, no less." Victor's irritation simmered, yet he felt the stirrings of doubt clawing at the edges of his thought. Perhaps he should retreat, let them enjoy their evening. But arrogance reigned over prudence. "I must insist," Victor continued, tracing the bounds of his authority. "I don't think this is the right venue for you. I believe it's best for you to take your leave." Carlos and Elena paused, absorbing the weight of Victor's words. Unfazed and composed, they rose from the table. "Your concern is noted, Mr. Langston," Carlos replied steadily. "However, we have no intention of letting anyone dictate our experience." In that moment, Victor felt an unfamiliar shift of vulnerability. "People often show their true selves in peculiar ways," Carlos stated, and with that, they departed, leaving Victor standing rigid, anger coursing through his veins. The other patrons, who had bore witness to the turmoil, quickly diverted their eyes, attempting to conceal their interest. Yet Victor returned to his post, a storm of thoughts swirling through his mind. Days turned to weeks, and Victor attempted to dismiss the interaction with Carlos and Elena. However, the quiet wariness surrounding his reputation unsettled him. On a particular morning, as Victor sifted through weekly earnings, an unexpected knock on his office door prompted him to look up. His assistant, Kate, stood at the threshold, holding a sleek envelope, the urgency palpable in her posture. "This arrived for you," she said, handing over the envelope. Curious, Victor inspected the finely embossed stationery from an elite law firm, cognizant of its significance. Upon opening it, Victor's heart raced. The offer was for an acquisition, well beyond market expectations, alluringly presented. Yet, the identity of the potential investor remained undisclosed, provoking hidden intrigue. After a brief contemplation, he contacted the firm, eager to arrange a meeting. The subsequent day, Victor traveled to the firm's illustrious office, awash in an air of expectation. Inside an opulent conference room, he took his seat, smug with the allure of potential financial gain. However, his bravado deflated when two familiar faces entered. It was Carlos and Elena. "Mr. Langston, thank you for attending," Carlos began confidently. Victor faltered, his heart sinking. "Have a seat. We have much to discuss," Elena encouraged, her demeanor poised and assertive as they took their places across from him. Victor felt impotent, his thoughts swirling with unease. Swiftly, Carlos addressed the topic at hand. "We value your establishment and are interested in purchasing the Golden Spoon along with your other ventures." The revelation washed over Victor, leaving him momentarily speechless. "An offer?" "Yes," Carlos replied, his tone contemplative. We aim to acquire your entire restaurant chain for a substantial premium." Confusion flickered across Victor's face. Was this a jest? After the treatment he had dished out, such echoes of kindness felt distinctly dissonant. "We're prepared to follow up quickly," Elena stated matter-of-factly, "but there are conditions." Tension crackled in the air. Victor's expression darkened when he learned he would have to step away entirely, relinquishing all claim to his legacy. "Why must I walk away? This is mine," he spat, his voice thick with indignation. Carlos and Elena exchanged a knowing glance, an understanding of the precarious ground they stood upon. "This is a business transaction, a means to preserve our principles," Elena asserted resolutely. "You represent what we reject. If you do not agree to our terms, we will ensure the public knows how you treated us." The weight of the ultimatum set upon Victor like a crushing mantle. Silence enveloped the room as a torrent of realization surged through him. He had lost control. Finally, he exhaled in capitulation. "Fine," he muttered, irate resignation coloring the edges of his voice. The drawn-out finality loomed as he signed the documents, sealing his fate. Gratitude watched over Carlos as they stood, extending hands of civility. "Thank you, Mr. Langston. We appreciate your cooperation. We'll uphold your legacy as we move forward." As Victor departed the office, the ache of betrayal clawed at him. The restaurant he had carefully sculpted would now be molded by figures he had underestimated. In the weeks that followed, whispers surrounded Victor's exit. What had once been a name synonymous with prestige began to erode into folklore, overshadowed by the revelation of his tarnished character. Meanwhile, Carlos and Elena rejuvenated the Golden Spoon, fostering acceptance and community engagement. Their determination transformed the restaurant into the very antithesis of Victor's bygone era of exclusivity. Though Victor's wealth cushioned his fall, the isolation felt sharper. As months passed, he resolved to confront his creation once more, seeking closure over a chapter irrevocably closed. Upon calling for a reservation, the hostess offered a polite reply, yet Victor's heart sank. He was just another customer. With self-reflection looming, Henry was left to grapple with the true cost of his arrogance. The restaurant, under Carlos and Elena's ownership, flourished as a symbol of inclusivity and kindness. As time swept forward, the once dominant figure faded into obscurity, rendered irrelevant. In stark contrast, the establishment thrived, epitomizing the essence of shared humanity that had eluded Victor throughout his life. Now a mere cautionary tale, Victor's legacy became a reminder that arrogance and prejudice would inevitably shatter even the most formidable of pillars.